Picture this. It's 1325, and you're jolted awake in a medieval village that makes your worst camping trip look like a luxury spa. Forget Hollywood's shining knights and fairy tale castles. The Middle Ages are a gritty, grimy fight for survival, where you're more likely to wrestle fleas than dragons. If you're cozy in bed right now, hit that like button and subscribe. Only if you're vibing with this journey, and drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It's wild to see who's joining us from across the globe. Now dim the lights, maybe flip on a fan for that soft hum, and let's dive into a world that'll make you kiss your Wi-Fi router in gratitude. You blink awake, sprawled on a straw mattress that's more bug than bed, the air thick with the stench of damp hay and last week's goat. It's not a bedroom, it's a wooden hut, one room for you, your family, a couple of chickens and an army of insects throwing a rave. The church bell clangs outside a relentless medieval alarm clock that doesn't care if you got 3 hours of sleep. Your blanket, a wool slab unwashed since the last king's coronation, weighs as much as a small pony caked with grime and regret. No memory foam, no fluffy pillows, just a scratchy pile of misery that smells like it was dragged through a barn because it was. You're 22, which is basically senior citizen status here, and your body's already filing complaints. Your spine creaks like a haunted gate, your knees crunch like a sack of gravel, and stretching feels like a personal attack. The air's so cold it bites, and your bare feet hit a floor that's either slick with last night's rain thanks to the leaky thatched roof, or crusty with mystery substances you don't want to identify. Privacy, a myth. Your family's snoring beside you, maybe a random cousin who's been crashing since the harvest, all sharing this open concept nightmare. The smell's a brutal mix of stale ale, human sweat, and something you hope isn't mould, but deep down know it is. This is your morning in medieval Europe, and it's not even 6 a.m. yet. You're never alone, fleas, rodents, and the weight of survival are your constant crew. Congrats, you're alive. The bad news. That's the highlight of your day. So pull yourself from this haystack of horrors, because nature's calling, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. You've clawed your way out of bed, but now nature's screaming, and it's not asking politely. If you're picturing a sparkling bathroom with fluffy towels snap out of it, this is 1325, and hygiene is a word nobody's invented yet. Your toilet's a wooden bucket tucked behind the hut, already brimming, because Uncle Wolfstarn had a wild night with some dodgy turnips. The smell could knock a vulture off a corpse. You hold your breath, do what you gotta do, then brace yourself, toss it into the street. Yup, the street. You're supposed to yell Gardez-vous old French for watch out below, but nobody dodges fast enough. Medieval towns or open sewers, a charming stew of human waste animal droppings and liquids you'd rather not name. If you're in a fancy town with public latrines, don't get excited. You're shoulder to shoulder with strangers in a reeking outhouse, making awkward small talk while praying the wooden bench doesn't collapse. Ventilation's a cruel joke, and toilet paper never heard of it. You're wiping with straw leaves or a scrap of wool if you're feeling bougie. Sometimes you just don't. Handshakes aren't a thing yet, and now you know why. Even in a castle, it's no picnic. You've got a garderobe, a hole in the wall, dropping straight into the moat grate until enemies climb up the waste chute. Yeah, that happened. Talk about a backdoor invasion. Every trip to relieve yourself is cold, public, and vaguely humiliating, like a twisted social experiment. One wrong step on a slick path and you're face first in the street's river. You stumble back, itching from fleas, your hands gritty, and realise you haven't even tackled your teeth yet. Spoiler, that's not going to be fun either. Welcome to medieval hygiene, where every choice feels like a dare and you're just trying not to lose your dignity or your breakfast. You've survived the medieval bathroom gauntlet, so surely you deserve a reward like a warm hearty breakfast to fuel your day. Think again. It's 1325 and comfort food is as mythical as a unicorn. You shuffle to the fire, squatting on a dirt floor that's seen more action than a battlefield, and stare into a wooden bowl of something. Meat pottage, the medieval equivalent of a culinary crime scene. This gloopy grey stew's been simmering in the same pot for days, maybe weeks, tossing in whatever scraps you scrounge, grains a sad turnip, maybe a bean if the harvest didn't betray you. It's less a meal and more a science experiment gone wrong, with a taste that lingers like regret. On the side there's bread, but don't get excited. This rye or barley loaf is harder than your landlord's heart bulked up with sawdust or ground acorns, because wheat's for nobles who don't know your name. You don't slice it, you wrestle it, praying your teeth survive the encounter. For a drink, no coffee's brewing, no orange juice is chilling. Instead, you gulp weak ale breakfast beer because the water's a parasite party you're not invited to. Kids sip it too, their little faces grim as they chug survival juice. Meat or cheese? That's a Sunday dream, and only if the Lord's in a rare generous mood. Fresh fruit? Only if it's fall and hasn't already turned into wine. Every bite's a gamble. That bread might chip a tooth. The pottage could hide a rat's midnight snack. Spices like pepper are worth more than your hut, so flavour comes from onions, maybe salt, and a hefty dose of despair. You chew slowly, not because you're savouring, but because you're negotiating with your stomach to keep it down. This isn't breakfast, it's a test of endurance. You swallow, wipe your gritty hands on your tunic and brace for the day ahead, already dreaming of a time when food doesn't feel like punishment. Your stomach's grumbling through the pottage ordeal, and now it's time to face the medieval fashion disaster that is getting dressed. Your wardrobe's not a closet, it's a single outfit. A rough wool tunic or linen shift you've worn so long, it's practically a second skin. Seasonal trends. Forget it. This is your look until it disintegrates or gives you a rash that sends you to the priest for an exorcism. Underwear's a luxury, maybe a linen undertunic if you're lucky, but most days you're going commando under layers of scratchy, sweat-soaked wool stitched by someone who thought seam meant suggestion. Washing clothes is a fantasy. No soap, no washing machine, just a river you'd have to haul water from heat over a fire and scrub with ashes if the sun's even out, which it isn't. Your tunic's stiff with stains, smelling like a pigsty left to fester, and you're not much better. Shoes. If you've got 'em, they're untreated leather barely holding together, offering less support than a broken promise. Most peasants go barefoot, trudging through mud dung and sharp rocks that turn every step into a medieval minefield. Your skin's screaming. Fleas and lice have set up permanent residence, throwing parties in your armpits while bedbugs nibble your legs. Everyone's itchy nobles monks, even the kids are walking insect farms. You scratch with a stick, a spoon, anything, and nobody blinks. A rash. That's just your body's way of saying, welcome to the club. No dermatologist, no cream, just you and your scabies sidekick for the next 6 months. You pull on this misery costume already sweating and itching and step outside where the real work's waiting to break you. In medieval Europe, getting dressed isn't about style. It's about surviving the outfit. You've choked down your pottage and wrestled into your itchy tunic, but now it's time to face your morning smile or what's left of it. In 1325, oral hygiene is about as real as a dragon's dental plan. No toothbrush, no toothpaste, no floss, and definitely no minty mouthwash to save you from the battlefield that is your mouth. You might chew a twig or swish some vinegar if you're feeling fancy, but most days your teeth are on their own, and they're losing the war. By your mid-20s, your smile's more haunted crypt than Hollywood sparkle with cavities carving out real estate and gums swollen like they're staging a revolt. That gritty rye bread and sticky pottage. They're not just food, they're tooth assassins leaving decay in their wake. Sugar's creeping into noble diets, rotting their teeth faster, but you're not spared fermented bread, and years of chewing hard loaves do the job slowly but surely. Toothaches are your new normal, a dull throb that feels like the weather always there, always miserable. Pain bad enough to make you consider yanking the offender yourself. That's not a joke. The local barber surgeon, yep, the same guy, hacking your hair, doubles as your dentist, wielding an iron hook by candlelight with all the finesse of a blacksmith. No anesthesia, just a prayer and a scream. An infected tooth isn't just pain, it's a death sentence waiting to happen. Without antibiotics, a bad molar can spiral into sepsis, turning a cavity into your funeral. Kissing. Good luck halitosis is the medieval perfume, and everyone's wearing it. Nobody's judging your smile, though. They're too busy sizing up your land or livestock. Your mouth's a wreck, and you've got no choice but to grit your rotting teeth and keep going. Because in medieval Europe, dental care isn't about prevention. It's about surviving the pain long enough to make it to lunch. Your teeth are throbbing, but there's no time to sulk work's calling, and in 1325 it's a brutal master. If you're one of the 90% scraping by as a peasant, your job's simple: don't die while slaving for a lord who wouldn't pick you out of a lineup. No office, no coffee breaks, just sunrise to sunset labour 6 days a week. Sundays off unless the harvest's late, or your toes turning black from an infection you can't afford to care about. Your tools: a splintery wooden hoe, a rusty sickle, and whatever's left of your spine. You're ploughing fields by hand, or if you're rich with an ox that's as stubborn as the mud you're knee-deep in. You dig ditches, sow seeds, pull weeds, and haul water until your back's screaming and your hands are raw. Tired. Nobody cares. Mental health day. That's a fever dream. If you're a woman, you're not just in the fields, you're cooking, cleaning, spinning wool and dodging your husband's lice while keeping the kids alive. Kids, they're working by age 5, clutching tiny rakes and dreaming of not catching the flu. Not a farmer. Maybe you're a blacksmith or tanner choking on smoke or animal guts in a shed that's one spark away from a fireball. Pay barely enough to eat. Perks, blisters, and the occasional near-death experience. Break a bone, tough luck, fever. Chug some warm ale and keep swinging. Stop working, and you don't eat medieval Europe's got no safety net, just a quick replacement if you keel over. You grip your shovel, ignore the pain shooting up your arm and keep digging, because this isn't a career, it's a slow-motion fight to stay alive. The sun's climbing, and the fields don't care about your dreams. In this world, labour isn't a choice. It's the only thing keeping you from the grave. You've barely survived the morning's labour, your hands blistered and your back begging for mercy. But now the medieval weather's here to remind you who's really in charge. In 1325 there's no thermostat, no insulation, just a world where the sky seems personally offended by your existence. Winter's a beast. Your hut's wooden walls have gaps wide enough to toss a chicken through, and the cloth windows let in more frost than light. The hearth's fire is a sad flicker, because firewood's worth more than your weekly wages, and stealing a stick from the Lord's forest could get you hanged. You huddle under your grimy wool tunic, breath fogging nose frozen, and fingers stiff as icicles, wondering if your toes will survive until spring. Summer's no better. It turns your hut into a sweaty clay oven. No fans, no breeze, just you baking in layers of wool you can't peel off without scandalising the village or inviting a swarm of flies. The sun's relentless, and there's no sunscreen, just straw hats you weave yourself looking like a desperate scarecrow. Heatstroke's just a bad turn, and the fields don't care if you're dizzy. Mosquitoes hum in your ears all night, and the stench of last week's goat stew festers in the corner. Whether you're shivering through winter's bite or melting in summer's glare, your clothes itch. Your food's grim, and work never stops. Medieval climate control. It's a cruel joke just to you the elements, and a prayer to make it through the day without frostbite or a sunburn that feels like divine punishment. You've barely survived the morning's labour, your hands blistered and your back begging for mercy. But now the medieval weather's here to remind you who's really in charge. In 1325 there's no thermostat, no insulation, just a world where the sky seems personally offended by your existence. Winter's a beast, your huts. Wooden walls have gaps wide enough to toss a chicken through, and the cloth windows let in more frost than light. The hearth's fire is a sad flicker, because firewood's worth more than your weekly wages, and stealing a stick from the Lord's forest could get you hanged. You huddle under your grimy wool tunic, breath fogging nose frozen and fingers stiff as icicles, wondering if your toes will survive until spring. Summer's no better, it turns your hut into a sweaty clay oven. No fans, no breeze, just you baking in layers of wool you can't peel off without scandalising the village or inviting a swarm of flies. The sun's relentless, and there's no sunscreen, just straw hats you weave yourself, looking like a desperate scarecrow. Heatstroke's just a bad turn, and the fields don't care if you're dizzy. Mosquitoes hum in your ears all night, and the stench of last week's goat stew festers in the corner. Whether you're shivering through winter's bite or melting in summer's glare, your clothes itch, your food's grim, and work never stops. Medieval climate control. It's a cruel joke just due the elements, and a prayer to make it through the day without frostbite or a sunburn that feels like divine punishment. You're parched from dodging deadly water and battered from the fields, but now a cough's creeping up, or maybe that rash from your flea-infested tunic's gone rogue. Time to see a doctor. Nope, it's 1325, and medieval medicine's less about healing and more like a theology class with a side of torture. Got a fever, a broken arm, or a suspicious sneeze. It's all because your humours, blood phlegm, yellow bile, black bile are out of whack like a soup recipe gone demonic. The cure? Bloodletting. That's right, your local barber, fresh from trimming beards, grabs a dull blade or a leech and drains your excess blood into a bowl. Feeling faint yet? You should be. Sad or anxious. Too much black bile time for a laxative purge or some prayers while everyone side-eyes you like you're halfway to the coffin. Break a bone. Good luck. Surgery's a knife-wielding free-for-all done by candlelight with tools that haven't been cleaned since the last crusade. No anaesthesia, just a scream and a prayer. Germs. Nobody's heard of them. Disease comes from bad air or God's wrath over that time you cursed the cow. Stomachache. Must be sinful thoughts. Confess, puke, repeat. If things get worse, they'll slap on more leeches, maybe sprinkle some crushed beetles, and call the priest for last rites just in case. If you survive, it's a miracle and the doctor takes all the credit while the leech gets a promotion. Medicine here isn't science. It's a gamble where the house always wins and the house is death. You limp back to your hut, fever spiking, praying you don't croak before dawn. In medieval Europe, getting sick isn't a setback. It's a one-way ticket to the afterlife, courtesy of a leech and a bad theory. After surviving the medieval ER, your stomach's howling for something to quiet it down. Too bad dinner in 1325 isn't a meal. It's a survival challenge. Food preservation's a pipe dream, no fridges, no freezers, just salt smoke or a prayer that winter's cold doesn't fail you. Got meat lucky you, but it's been hanging for days, swarmed by flies dunked in sketchy brine, and probably nibbled by a rat. Bread's your lifeline, but it's no artisan sourdough. In lean years, it's stretched with bark, clay or sawdust, turning every bite into a gritty gamble. Rye bread's the worst ergot fungus can sneak in sparking hallucinations, convulsions, or a one-way trip to the grave. It's like eating LSD with a side of tetanus. Vegetables. Turnips always turnips boiled, mashed or haunting your pottage like a ghost of flavour past. Fruit's a fleeting fall treat, rotting faster than your dreams of a better life. Dairy's dicey milk sours in hours, and cheese is a bacterial party you're invited to at your own risk. Spices, peppers pricier than your soul, so you're stuck with onions, maybe salt, and a sprinkle of misery. Every meal's a health hazard, but it's also a political minefield. Poach a rabbit from the Lord's land and you're risking a fine jail or a noose. Dinner could literally get you hanged. You sit by a flickering fire, spooning grey stew that tastes like wet socks, each bite a leap of faith. You chew, you swallow, you pray it stays down, because in medieval Europe food doesn't nourish, it dares you to keep breathing. And tomorrow you'll do it all again, assuming you survive the night. You've barely digested your questionable stew, and the day's grind is wearing you thin, but don't think you can kick back yet God's watching. And so's the village priest along with your nosy neighbour Agnes, who'd snitch faster than you can say heresy. In 1325, religion isn't just a Sunday hobby. It's the air you breathe, the chains you wear, and the tax you can't dodge. The church runs everything, your calendar, your laws, even your thoughts. It's like a spiritual landlord who's always hiking the rent and you're perpetually behind. Church bells clang at dawn, noon, and dusk, not because you're forgetful, but because skipping prayers is a sin that could land you in hot water, eternal or otherwise. Miss a mass, that's a sin. Eat meat on Friday. Sin. Dream about your neighbour's wife. Double sin. And the priest's got a sermon ready to make you sweat. Hell's not abstract here. It's a vivid horror show of fire, rivers boiling blood, and demons with pitchforks painted in gory detail to keep you in line. You can't read the Bible, it's in Latin, a language for monks and nobles who don't shovel dung like you, so you lean on the priest's word. If he says you're bad harvests, because you didn't pray hard enough, you're on your knees grovelling. Tithes non-negotiable. A tenth of your wheat eggs or nothing if you're broke, leaving you spiritually and financially gutted. Holidays. Holy days are no vacation. They're for fasting, confessing, and reminding yourself joy's a trap. Question the church. That's a one-way ticket to the stake for heresy, a drowning for witchcraft, or a flogging for blasphemy. So you chant, you bow, you pray. Your soul might escape this mud-caked life for paradise, assuming the priest doesn't hold a grudge. In medieval Europe, God might be merciful, but the church is a stickler, and every step you take is a tightrope over damnation. If you thought scraping by as a peasant was rough, try doing it as a woman in 1325. It's like playing survival on hard mode with no saves and extra traps. You're wading through the same filth, hunger and fear as the men, but pile on childbirth subservience and a society that treats you like a ghost unless you're useful. From the moment you're born, your path's carved in stone, marry young, pop out, kids serve your husband and die exhausted. Education. Unless you're a noble nun, your brain's on lockdown once you learn to churn butter or mend a tunic. Married at 12, pregnant by 14. That's not weird, it's Tuesday. And love's got nothing to do with it. It's all about land, livestock and deals your dad made. Once married, you're your husband's property. Your job's to make heirs, cook, clean, spin wool and keep quiet. Complain. You're a nag or worse, a witch, and that label comes with a free drowning or bonfire depending on the village's mood. Childbirth's a death lottery. No prenatal care, no clean tools, just a midwife praying over you as you bleed out on a straw bed. Survive 10 pregnancies. You're a legend. Most don't make it past 2. And the work never stops. Nurse a baby, tend the fields. Dodge your husband's fists, all while lice throw a party in your hair. Unmarried, you're suspicious. Widowed, vulnerable. Speak up. That's a witch's tongue talking. Even in church, you're second-rate. Nuns, they're silent, locked-in convents worth less than monks. You're expected to endure, obey, and suffer with a smile, because somehow women have to make misery look graceful. In medieval Europe, being a woman isn't just hard, it's a relentless test of how much you can take before you break all, while the world pretends you were never there. You're still reeling from the church's iron grip and the extra weight of being a woman, but don't get too comfortable. Violence in 1325 is as common as fleas and twice as nasty. Forget any notions of a peaceful medieval hamlet. Law and order here means hoping the local lord isn't having a bad day. Violence isn't a glitch, it's the system. It's in your home, on the streets, in church spats, even at the bread oven when someone cuts the line. Steal a crust to feed your kids, you might lose a hand. Spread a rumour, say hello to the scold's bridle, a metal mask with a tongue spike to shut you up. Lie, they'll pierce your tongue and call it justice. Accused of something big like theft or heresy, welcome to trial by ordeal where innocence is proven by torture. Dunk your hand in boiling water to grab a stone. If it heals clean in 3 days, you're good, if not guilty. Or they toss you in a river sink and you're innocent but drowned. Float and you're doomed anyway. It's a rigged game show with death as the grand prize. Executions, public blockbusters with crowds cheering for hangings, beheadings or burnings, some even pack snacks. Domestic violence. Just another Tuesday. Husbands discipline wives and kids and nobody blinks. Street brawls erupt over a wrong look, and wars, local feuds, crusades, or noble tantrums keep blood flowing. You walk softly, eyes down, because a stray glance at a noble's horse could earn you a beating. Bandits' drunken neighbours or a lord's whim can end you in a heartbeat. In medieval Europe, life's a tightrope over a pit of swords, and every step's a reminder: trust no one, especially not the guy with a club. Violence isn't chaos, it's the pulse of a world where survival means staying one punch ahead. You've dodged fists and pitchforks, but now comes the final act of most medieval lives, an early unglamorous exit. If you're pushing 40 in 1325, you're a local legend, maybe even dubbed the Old One, like you've cracked some cosmic code. Life expectancy hovers around 30-40, dragged low by infant mortality. Half of kids don't see age 5, felled by disease hunger, or a brutal winter. No vaccines, no antibiotics, just prayers and luck's usually out to lunch. Survive childhood and you're already a wreck by 25, with creaky joints, missing teeth, and optimism buried under a pile of dung. For women, childbirth's a Grim Reaper's raffle. No painkillers, no sterile tools, just you a straw cot and a midwife muttering hopes as you bleed. Men aren't much safer. A farming mishap, a cut gone septic, or a neighbour's ale-fueled rage can drop you fast. The plague turns towns into ghost yards overnight. Famine starves entire villages, and bad grain sends you hallucinating to your grave. Funerals. If you're lucky, you get a quick hole in the churchyard, a mumbled prayer and a shallow mound before the next body's up. No embalming, no fancy coffins, just dirt and done. Death's not dramatic, it's casual, like a guest who shows up uninvited and stays. You don't retire, you just stop moving. By 40, your body's a map of scars, your dreams are on permanent hold, and every ache whispers, time's up. In medieval Europe, life's a sprint, not a marathon, and the finish line's closer than you think. You keep trudging because stopping means surrendering, and you're too stubborn for that, at least until the next cough or cut says otherwise. You've staggered through a day of filth labour and death's shadow, but before you start dreaming of shining nights and candlelit feasts, let's torch that fairy tale nonsense. The Middle Ages of 1325 aren't the glowing tapestries Hollywood sold you, no gallant swordsmen, no damsels twirling in towers. It's a gritty, cruel world where hierarchy's the law and survival's the game. Born poor, you're stuck scraping by in a hut that smells like despair. Born rich, congrats, you've got a fur cloak and a goblet, but you're still one bad stew away from dysentery or a dagger in a skirmish. Castles. They're drafty stone fridges crawling with fleas and scheming in-laws. Everything's harder than it looks. Childbirth's a gamble, chewing's a chore, and a splinter can send you to the grave. There's no upward mobility, no Google to check that weird rash, no weekend to catch your breath. You live, work and die within a 10-mile radius of the same muddy village, your life, a relentless loop of toil and prayer. The romanticised Middle Ages are a myth polished by storybooks that forgot the lice, the hunger, and the lord who taxes your last turnip. This isn't a time of heroes, it's a time of endurance, where every day is a battle against a world that doesn't care if you make it to tomorrow. So ditch the knight in shining armour fantasy or real fights with the rats, the cold, and a system rigged to keep you down. You've clawed through a day of medieval misery, fleas, hunger, and a world that seems to want you dead. But here's the kicker. People didn't just survive this. They laughed, sang, and found slivers of joy in the muck. Picture yourself by the fire, your back screaming, your stomach sour from pottage, and yet you're swapping bawdy jokes with your cousin or humming a tune about a lost cow. Humans in 1325 are stubborn as hell, carving out meaning where there should be none. They fall in love despite the lice tell stories under a leaky roof and dance at harvest festivals, even when the harvest sucks. It's not because life's easy, it's because giving up isn't in their blood. This resilience isn't pretty, it's gritty like the bread you choke down. A mother sings to her kid despite the fever, a farmer cracks a joke about the Lord's bad haircut while hauling manure. These aren't grand gestures, they're tiny rebellions against a world that grinds you down. So tonight, as you slip into your clean sheets with indoor plumbing and a fridge full of snacks, give a nod to your ancestors. They fought rats, famine and feudal nonsense so you could binge Netflix without a plague knocking. Their stubborn spark kept them going, and it's why you're here, cosy and alive with a life they could only dream of. Now let's shift gears. Next up, a girl named Sophie is about to rewrite what it means to rule. You've trudged through a day in 1325, dodging fleas, choking down pottage, and outrunning death's casual invitations. It's a world where survival's a daily miracle, and yet people still found ways to laugh, love and dream under that leaky thatched roof. As you sit by the dying embers of your fire, scratching at lice and praying tomorrow's less brutal, let's leave this muddy village behind. The Middle Ages showed us grit, but now it's time to trade the plough for a palace. Picture a young girl named Sophie, born far from your straw bed in a chilly German duchy. She's got no title to boast of, but a fire in her gut that'll burn through an empire. Her story's next, a tale of cunning ambition and a crown she wasn't born to wear. Ready to see how a nobody becomes a legend? Let's go. You're no longer a peasant scratching out a living in 1325, now you're Sophie, a sharp-eyed girl growing up in 1729 in a backwater German duchy called Anhalt-Zerbst. Forget sprawling castles. Your home's a modest manor, chilly and plain in a corner of Pomerania, where power's a distant rumour. Your mother Johanna is a social climber with a stare colder than a winter's night, always scheming for a better seat at the noble table. Your dad, a Prussian officer, is more drill sergeant than doting father, barking orders, while you learn to tiptoe between obedience and ambition. It's not a warm childhood, but it's a forge hammering you into something tougher than the world expects. By age 10, you're devouring books, history, philosophy, anything you can get your hands on, your mind, a sponge for ideas your small town can't contain. You speak French, German, and soon Russian, picking up languages like they're coins on the road. You watch rooms before you speak, learning who holds the power and how they wield it. Your mother's pushing you toward a grand marriage, but you're already dreaming bigger, not just a husband, but a legacy. In this stuffy duchy where every day smells of boiled cabbage and faded dreams, you're sharpening a mind that'll one day outwit an empire. Little do they know Sophie's not just a girl, she's a spark waiting to ignite. It's 1744 and you're Sophie, barely 14, stepping off a creaky carriage into the icy sprawl of St. Petersburg. The Russian capital's a glittering maze of opulence and paranoia, a far cry from your drab German duchy. Your thin dress is no match for the bone-chilling wind, but you plaster on a diplomatic smile knowing every eye's on you. Empress Elizabeth summoned you to marry her heir, Grand Duke Peter, a German-born nephew she hopes you'll tame. She thinks you're pliable, a Lutheran girl with noble blood and a humble streak perfect for moulding. But you've got plans she can't even dream of, and they don't involve being anyone's pawn. You're ushered into a palace where chandeliers gleam like frozen stars, but the warmth's a lie, spies lurk in every shadow, and whispers carry more weight than gold. To belong, you ditch your Lutheran faith for orthodoxy, taking the name Ekaterina Alexeyevna Catherine. The conversion's a public spectacle, a fur-trimmed coat hiding your nerves as you swear allegiance to a new god and a new empire. No one sees the fire in your chest, the hunger to turn this foreign land into your own. You memorize Russian phrases, study court etiquette, and charm anyone who matters all, while your mother hovers pushing her own agenda. This isn't just a marriage, it's a high-stakes game, and you're already learning the rules, ready to rewrite them when the time comes. You're Catherine, now 16, and married to Grand Duke Peter, heir to Russia's throne, but the fairy tale wedding's more cage than crown. Peter's no prince. He's an awkward man-child, more in love with toy soldiers than you, staging mock battles in his chambers, while you're left to navigate the viper's nest of the Russian court. He's obsessed with Prussia, resenting the empire he's meant to rule. And some nights he won't even touch you, leaving your marriage unconsummated, and your status shaky. You, on the other hand, embrace Russia like it's your birthright, learning its language, history, and orthodox rituals with a fierce hunger to belong. The court's a minefield, your letters are read, your maids report every move, and Empress Elizabeth's spies watch you like hawks. Peter's tantrums and open scorn for Russian traditions make a liability, while you play the dutiful wife-charming officers and scholars in the shadows. Behind closed doors you devour Voltaire and Montesquieu, dreaming of a Russia shaped by reason, not whims. Your mother's still scheming, whispering foreign plots in your ear, but you're done being her pawn. You're building alliances, smiling through the gossip and biding your time. Peter's unfit to rule, and the court's starting to notice. You're not just surviving this marriage, you're plotting a throne, one careful step at a time. It's 1762, and you're Catherine, no longer the wide-eyed Sophie shivering in St. Petersburg's chill. After years of enduring Peter's childish tantrums and the court's suffocating scrutiny, your moment's here. Empress Elizabeth's dead, and Peter III's on the throne, but he's unravelling faster than a bad tapestry. In mere months he's alienated everyone, insulting the church, snubbing the army, fawning over Prussia, Russia's sworn enemy, and muttering about divorcing you for his mistress. The court's buzzing with discontent, the generals are grumbling, and even the devout peasants see him as a foreign fool mocking their faith. You've been watching, waiting, weaving alliances in the shadows, and now you strike. You slip into full regalia, a vision of strength, and ride through St. Petersburg with military men like Gregory Orloff, your lover, and co-conspirator at your side. The Imperial Guard swears loyalty to you, their cheers drowning out Peter's name. It's a bloodless coup, swift and sharp. Peter, caught napping at his summer palace, surrenders, in days his reign crumbling like stale bread. Soon after he's dead, officially from hemorrhoidal colic, but the whispers say murder. You don't flinch. At 33, you're Empress Catherine Tsiu, not by birth or marriage, but by sheer will and cunning. The throne's yours, but holding it means proving a foreign-born woman can rule an empire that's already sharpening its knives. You're not just wearing the crown, you're forging it in fire. You're Empress Catherine now, the crown heavy, but yours and ruling Russia isn't just about sitting pretty. It's about reshaping a sprawling, stubborn empire. The court's still whispering about your coup, but you're already diving into ideas that make nobles twitch. Inspired by Voltaire and Montesquieu, you dream of a Russia driven by reason, not just raw power. In 1767, you launched the Legislative Commission, a bold move to rewrite Russia's creaky legal code. Your nakaz or instruction is a manifesto disguised as policy preaching equality before the law, the evils of torture, and a ruler's duty to serve the people. It's radical stuff for a land where serfs are treated like livestock. You're no starry-eyed idealist, though. Russia's nobles cling to their serfs like gold, and you know pushing too hard could spark rebellion. So you balance the scales, banning some torture-building schools, expanding libraries, but keeping the nobility sweet by leaving serfdom untouched. It's a tightrope act, enlightenment in public, hard-nosed politics in private. You write letters to Voltaire flattering his ego while defending your iron grip, and even buy Diderot's library to keep him afloat. Every move's calculated, every reform a chess play. You're not just ruling, you're sculpting a nation one cautious step at a time, proving a woman can wield power without losing her head. The Empire's watching, and you're ready to show them what a philosopher queen can do. Your Empress Catherine, your crown, a symbol of will as much as power. And in the 1760s and 1770s, you're not just ruling Russia, you're redrawing its borders with a sword and a smirk. This isn't about defence, it's about making an empire that makes Europe tremble. You set your sights on the Ottoman Empire, waging wars that aren't just for land, but for legacy. Under generals like Alexander Suvorov and Gregory Potemkin, your armies storm Crimea, snatch the Black Sea's northern coast, and secure warm water ports Russia's golden ticket to trade and influence. You style yourself as the liberator of Orthodox Christians under Muslim rule, a nod to faith but mostly a flex of power. Every victory screams Russia's no backwater. It's a beast. Then you turn west, slicing up Poland like a diplomatic pie with Austria and Prussia. By 1795, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth's gone erased, and Russia's gorged on new lands and millions of subjects. You don't just send armies, you send ideas, building cities, expanding trade, inviting German settlers to tame the wild steppes. Your empire's a mosaic, now stretching from Baltic ice to Black Sea sun, and you're the glue poring over reports, signing orders, shaping a nation that's both feared and envied. Critics call you power-hungry, but you see it as destiny. In your Russia borders aren't lines, they're statements, and you're writing them in blood and ink, proving an empress can conquer as fiercely as any czar. You're Catherine, Empress of Russia, but behind the throne you're a woman who plays by her own rules. And in the 1700s, that means a love life that sets Europe's tongues wagging. You don't hide your love as young, handsome, often useful, and you reward loyalty with titles, estates, or a polite exit if they step out of line. No one looms larger than Gregory Potemkin, a bear of a man with brains to match his swagger. He's not just your lover, but your partner in power, maybe even your secret husband, shaping campaigns and colonizing the South. Together you're a force planning wars, building cities, dreaming big. When the passion cools, he stays your ally, your confident proof that love can be strategy as much as heart. Europe scandalized, churning out pamphlets that paint you as insatiable, unhinged, even tossing around that vile horse myth your enemies cooked up to smear you. You shrug it off. In a world where women rulers are supposed to be saints, or sob stories, you refuse the script. You read philosophy, argue love's as natural as power, and keep your liaisons calculated, each lover a chess piece, loyal, capable, and often political gold. When they're done, you send them off with a smile and a pension, no drama needed. Your critics call it scandal, you call it survival. In your Russia, passion doesn't weaken your rule, it sharpens it, blending heart and head into a legacy that's as unforgettable as it is fearless. You're Catherine, Empress of Russia, your throne a fortress of cunning, but in 1773, a storm bruise that shakes your empire's bones. A bearded Cossack named Yemelyan Pugachev strides out of the Volga's shadows, claiming he's Peter III, your dead husband risen to reclaim the crown. It's a wild lie, but to Russia's weary serfs crushed under noble boots, it's a spark of hope. Pugachev promises freedom land and an end to serfdom's chains, his words igniting a fire among Cossacks, peasants, and old believers. Towns fall, nobles are slaughtered, and for a heart-stopping moment it feels like the empire might crack. This isn't a foreign war you can crush with cavalry. It's a revolt from your own people, raging against the inequality you've balanced to keep power. You don't panic, though. You unleash your army, a hammer of steel and discipline, to smash Pugachev's ragtag forces. By 1774, he's captured, paraded in an iron cage through Moscow's streets, then beheaded, a grim warning to dreamers. You tighten the screws, more surveillance, less mercy, and a nod to the nobles to keep their serfs in line. Your Enlightenment dreams of freeing serfs of Voltaire's ideals fade into whispers. Pugachev's rebellion scars you, a reminder that power built on shaky ground can tremble. You rule on, but now you know reform's a luxury when the mob's at your gates, and stability's the only crown that lasts. You're Catherine, your grip on Russia, ironclad after Pugachev's fall, but you're not content with just holding the throne, you want to etch your name in history's glow. Beyond wars and politics, you weave a cultural tapestry that makes Russia shine. You found the Hermitage Museum, stuffing it with art so grand it rivals Paris, turning St. Petersburg into a hub of sophistication, where Europe's elite take notice. You swap letters with Voltaire, charm, Diderot, and collect books like a dragon hoarding gold-building libraries to spark minds in a land once called backward. You push education, opening schools for girls unheard of in most empires, and champion smallpox inoculation, rolling up your sleeve to take the jab yourself, a bold move when half the court thinks it's witchcraft. Your court buzzes with music theatre and debates a stage where Russia struts as a modern power. Yet you're no dreamer lost in ideals. Every school, every painting, every book's a calculated flex proof an empress can wield culture as deftly as armies. You're not just ruling, you're crafting a Russia that's feared, admired, and undeniably yours. When you look at your empire, you see more than land, you see a legacy one that'll outlive the whispers of your enemies and the weight of your crown. You're Catherine, Empress of Russia, in the twilight of your reign, your hair greyer, but your will as fierce as ever. By the 1790s, you've ruled for over 3 decades longer than any woman in Russia's history, turning a sprawling, fractious empire into a powerhouse that makes Europe flinch. You've stretched borders by 200,000 square miles. Crimea, Poland, Black Sea, ports each conquest a brick in your legacy. But the years weigh heavy. Your son Paul, kept at arm's length, looms like a storm cloud, his resentment a threat to your reforms. Gregory Potemkin, your greatest love and ally, died in 1791, leaving a quiet ache no courtier can fill. You're surrounded by admirers, yet your memoirs confess a loneliness only power understands. You rise daily, poring over reports, editing decrees, managing a court that's a nest of ambition. You've built schools, championed art, and made Russia a cultural star, but serfdom's chains, your early dream of breaking them, stay locked a nod to the nobles who keep you secure. History will call you a reformer, a tyrant, a seductress, but above all effective. When you die in 1796, Russia's richer, bigger, fiercer. You weren't born to the throne. You seized it, shaped it, and made it yours through wit and grit. As you pen your final letters, you know you're more than an empress. You're a myth, a woman who rewrote what power could be, leaving a crown that's as much a challenge as a prize. You're standing in the humid tangle of Mexico's Chiapas jungle, 1994, where the ruins of Palenque whisper secrets older than empires. Towering Maya temples pierce the canopy, their limestone faces worn but alive with stories. A team led by Fanny Lopez Jimenez probes Temple the Three, a modest pyramid dwarfed by the Grand Temple of the Inscriptions, where King Pakal the Great rests. Expecting little, they stumble on a sealed chamber untouched by looters, heavy with centuries of silence. You can almost feel the air thicken as they break through, descending into a crypt where a stone sarcophagus waits. As the lid lifts, a cloud of brilliant red dust rises cinnabar, a sacred toxic powder that clings like blood. Inside lies a woman's skeleton, fragile but regal, her skull adorned with a jade mask, her body cradled by offerings, necklaces, diadems, ear spools, all gleaming with reverence. This is no ordinary burial, it's royal, deliberate, spiritual. They call her the Red Queen, a name that sticks because no glyphs spell out who she was. In the 7th century heart of Palenque's golden age, she was someone vital, maybe a queen, maybe more. Her tomb drenched in crimson isn't just a grave, it's a mystery, a woman's legacy sealed in stone waiting for you to unravel. You're deep in the Red Queen's tomb, the air heavy with the scent of ancient stone and the scarlet haze of cinnabar dust. This isn't just decoration, it's sacred, a vibrant red powder made from crushed mercury sulfide as dangerous as it is holy to the Maya. In Palenque's 7th century world, cinnabar's no mere pigment. It's blood rebirth, the pulse of life tying mortals to gods. Coating her bones, her sarcophagus, even the walls, it transforms her burial into a ritual of cosmic renewal. You can almost see the priests, their hands stained crimson, preparing her not for death, but for a journey through the divine. This red is the colour of sunrise, of sacrifice of life spilling to feed the earth. But it's a gamble, cinnabar's toxic, its fumes whispering of tremors, madness, even death. The Maya didn't know the chemistry, but they felt its power, volatile and sacred like the gods themselves. Only the elite like Pakal the Great were buried in this scarlet shroud, and her matching treatment hints at her stature, maybe his queen, maybe his equal. Every grain of dust screams she was no ordinary mortal. In this silent chamber, cinnabar doesn't just mark her grave, it anoints her a woman wrapped in the colour of eternity, ready to cross into the Maya's sacred realms. You stand in the Red Queen's crypt, the cinnabar glow, fading into shadows where her offerings gleam with purpose. Surrounding her bones are treasures not for show, but for her soul's journey through Xibalba, the Maya underworld. Jade necklaces drape her chest, their cool green sheen, a symbol of eternal life like maize sprouting from jungle earth. A delicate jade mask pieced together from tiny mosaic tiles covers her face not just to shield her soul, but to preserve her divine identity for the god's gaze. You can feel the weight of its ritual power, a queen's essence held in stone. Scattered nearby are bone needles, obsidian blades and shell ornaments, each a clue to her life, perhaps a priestess, a healer, or a royal mother. A carved bone pin whispers of ceremonies she led or honours paid at her death. Ceramic vessels sealed tight likely held chocolate maize or incense to sustain her spirit in the afterlife's trials. These aren't trinkets. They're tools for a perilous voyage where Xibalba's rivers of blood and death gods wait. Every item's chosen with care, a map for her soul to navigate the cosmos. In this tomb you see not just a burial, but a transformation. A woman prepared to ascend her legacy, etched in jade and silence, speaking louder than any name. You're still in the Red Queen's tomb, the jade and cinnabar whispering of a woman whose name the stones refuse to yield. It's the 7th century in Palanque, and this burial's too grand for anyone ordinary. So who was she? Scholars lean toward Zakbu Ajar, wife of Kinich Jana Pakal, the legendary king whose own cinnabar-drenched tomb lies just steps away in the Temple of the Inscriptions. Zakbu Ajar was no mere consort. Born noble, she married into Palanque's dynasty, bore 3 sons who carried royal blood and stood at Pakal's side in sacred rites. The tomb's closeness feels deliberate, a husband and wife paired in death, as in life their crimson shrouds a shared divine mark. But the mystery lingers. DNA tests on her bones and Pakal's show no direct maternal link, though that doesn't rule out a spousal bond marriage weaves hearts, not genes. Could she be Sak Kuk Pakal's mother who ruled as regent before his reign, or a high priestess, a sister, a forgotten royal whose name time erased? The lack of glyphs is puzzling, maybe intentional, her identity meant to live through ritual, not words. Every clue, her jade mask, the temple's alignment, the cinnabar's sacred weight points to power, yet her silence keeps you guessing. The Red Queen's tomb is a riddle, her story, a shadow that dances just beyond your reach, daring you to name her. You step back from the Red Queen's crypt, her mystery, pulling you deeper into the Maya world of Palanque, where women weren't just shadows behind kings, they were powerhouses in their own right. In the 7th century, Maya politics was a family affair, and royal women like Zakbu Ajar were diplomats, priestesses, and dynasty anchors. They led ritual-sponsored temples and wove alliances through their bloodlines, their sons and daughters cementing claims to thrones. Take Sakkuk Pakal's mother. She didn't just hold the crown for her young son. She ruled Palanque outright, issuing decrees and building monuments until he came of age. Across Maya cities, Yaschilan, Naranjo, Calakmul, women's names echo in glyphs carved as equals beside kings. They waged wars, sealed treaties, and stood in headdresses, heavy with Quetzal feathers, their voices shaping empires. The Red Queen, whether Zakbajar or another fits this mould, her tomb's riches, and its place beside Pakal's, scream influence, not subservience. Her jade mask isn't mere jewellery. It's a badge of divine authority, her role as a bridge between gods and mortals. Spanish conquerors later painted Maya women as silent, but the stones tell a different tale. Power wasn't just inherited, it was negotiated, and women like the Red Queen held the scales their legacy, a quiet roar in Palanque's sacred heart. You're lingering in the Red Queen's tomb, the air thick with the weight of centuries, but it's not just the cinnabar or jade that speaks, it's the stone itself. Temple-themed, her eternal home in 7th century Palanque isn't some random pyramid. It's a sacred machine built with cosmic precision, tucked humbly beside the grand Temple of the Inscriptions, where Pakal the Great lies. Its modest size belies its power. You descend a steep, narrow staircase into the crypt, each step a ritual plunge into the Maya underworld. The chamber's stark, its cut stone walls bare of glyphs or carvings, but the silence feels intentional, like a canvas for her soul's transformation. The sarcophagus sits like an altar carved from limestone, echoing Pakal's grand coffin next door. Unlike his etched with cosmic rebirth scenes, hers is plain turning focus inward to the cinnabar-drenched body. The tomb's aligned east to west, mirroring the sun's path from life to death, a subtle nod to Maya cosmology. Every angle, every stone feels deliberate, a small potent space, not for the living to gawk at, but for a queen to ascend. In Palanque, temples were bridges between Earth-sky and Xibalba, and this one's no grave. It's a shrine whispering she was more than mortal. Her legacy carved not in words, but in the architecture of eternity. You stand in the Red Queen's crypt, her jade mask glinting in the dim, and sense this isn't just a burial, it's a launch pad for her soul's trek through Xibalba, the Maya underworld. In 7th century Palanque, death's no end, but a threshold, a maze of blood rivers, dark trials, and death gods waiting to test the spirit. The Red Queen's wrapped in cinnabar red as life itself to fuel her rebirth. Bone needles and obsidian blades at her side hint at rituals she led, maybe bloodletting, maybe offerings now reenacted to arm her for the journey. Her jade mask, pieced from sacred tiles, isn't just art. It's a vessel preserving her face so gods recognize her divine spark. Ceramic vessels sealed with chocolate or maize stand ready to nourish her through Xibalba's perils. Stingray spines or shell trumpets might call to deities tying her to the cosmos. Every item's a tool for a soul facing a layered afterlife where only the ritually prepared prevail. The Maya saw death as planting, burial as seeding, and the Red Queen's no mere corpse, she's a queen poised for deification. Her crimson bones a bridge to the divine. In this tomb you feel the pulse of a culture that didn't mourn death, but choreographed it, sending a woman not into silence but into legend, her journey just beginning as the stone seals shut. You're standing at the edge of the Red Queen's tomb, the cinnabar dust settling her jade mask staring into eternity. In Plank's 7th century heart, she was a force maybe Zakbu Ajor, maybe more, but her name's lost her story sealed in silence. Yet her burial's no quiet grave, it's a shout across 300 years found untouched in 1994, sparking questions that hum louder with every dig. No glyphs spell her title, but the crimson powder. The jade riches the temple's sacred design. Scream she held power not just as a wife, but as a pillar of a dynasty. Her tomb forces you to rethink the Maya world, where women weren't sidelined, they led rituals, shaped empires, and carried divine blood. The Red Queen's not just a relic. She's a mirror reflecting a culture where queens stood tall beside kings. Her mystery's her strength. Scholars chase her identity, artists paint her shadow, and you can't help but wonder who she was. Was she Pakal's moon to his sun, a cosmic pair ruling in death as in life? Her legacy's not in answers, but in the conversation she's ignited, reminding you that history's a puzzle, alive with gaps you ache to fill. She lies in scarlet, her soul, long gone to Xibalba, but her story's still unfolding, a nameless queen who rules your imagination, her silence louder than any stone could carve. You're in Coyoacan, Mexico, 1907, not a muddy medieval village, but a vibrant suburb pulsing with colour and contradiction. You're Frida Kahlo, a spark of a girl born into the Casa Azul, a blue-walled home that's part sanctuary, part battleground. Your father Guillermo, a German-Hungarian photographer, is quiet intellectual, urging you to think sharp and stand tall. Your mother Matilda is a devout Catholic with indigenous roots, fierce but distant, her love wrapped in rules. You're the third of 4 daughters, already bold at 6, asking questions that make adults squirm, and reading books like they're air. Then polio strikes a thief in the night, chaining you to bed for months, your right leg left thinner, weaker. Kids whisper, and you hide it under long skirts, but you don't let it cage your spirit. Bedridden, you draw, dream, and talk to your reflection. Your father's encouragement a lifeline. Unlike most girls, you're not eyeing a husband, you want to be a doctor, your mind too big for the kitchen. At 15, you storm the National Preparatory School, one of few girls there, your wit, and radical ideas cutting through like a machete. In Coyoacan's dusty streets, you're not just growing up, you're forging a fire that'll burn through paint and history, a girl already painting herself into the world. You're Frida Kahlo, 18, and fearless, bouncing through Mexico City in 1925, on a rickety wooden bus with your boyfriend Alejandro. You're laughing, maybe bickering, your fire never burns halfway when the world shatters. A streetcar slams into the bus splintering wood and lives in a scream of metal. An iron handrail skewers you hip to pelvis, your spine snapping in 3 places, your right leg a jigsaw of bone. Your foot's twisted ribs cracked, shoulder-wrenched, and your abdomen's pierced. Gold powder from a burst pouch dusts your broken body, glittering like some cruel halo. You're not just hurt, you're remade in pain. The Red Cross hospital's a blur of surgeries, your body stitched and cased in plaster infections clawing at your edges. Weeks drag into months flat on your back, the dream of doctoring slipping through your fingers like ash. You're 18, and life's already a battlefield, each breath a fight against a body that betrays you. Yet in this stillness something stirs. Your mother rigs an easel above your bed, your father hands you brushes, and a mirror hangs to show your face, your only subject. You don't know it yet, but this crash isn't just a break. It's a birth. In the wreckage of your bones, you're finding a voice that'll scream through paint louder than any scar. You're Frida, trapped in plaster in 1925, Coyoacan, your body a cage, but your mind a wildfire. The bus crash stole your future as a doctor, but it cracked open something rawer. With brushes from your father and an easel rigged by your mother, you start painting first to kill boredom, then to survive. Your mirror's your only muse, reflecting a face you know better than anyone. You're not chasing vanity, you're wrestling pain, pouring it onto tin and wood in colours that bleed truth. These aren't pretty portraits. They're autopsies of your soul, split, pierced, weeping, but always staring back, defiant. Inspired by Mexican retablos devotional art of suffering and miracles, you turn your trauma into altars. You paint nails driven into your flesh, a spine like a broken column, your body tethered to loss. It's brutal, surreal, blending folk art with the raw edge of your reality. Each stroke's a reclamation, a way to own the body that betrays you, the woman the world tries to box in. By the time you hobble out of bed, cane in hand, you're no longer the girl who wanted to heal others. You're an artist, birthing a language of pain and power. Your canvases don't just hold paint. They hold you fierce and unbowed, ready to make the world flinch at your truth. You're Frida Kahlo 21 in 1928. Still limping from the bus crash but burning with purpose in Mexico City. Your paintings are raw, your spirit sharper, and now you're tracking down Diego Rivera, the muralist giant whose frescoes of Mexican grit make walls sing. He's 20 years older, a bear of a man painting at the Ministry of Education, and you barge in cane, clicking with your canvas's underarm. Do I have talent, you ask, blunt as a machete? Diego's eyes narrow, scanning your work, your bleeding hearts, your fractured self. Yes, he says, not out of pity but awe, seeing a voice unpolished and fierce. What sparks isn't just mentorship, it's a collision. Diego's murals raw revolution. Your paintings whisper pain, but both pulse with Mexico's soul. You're drawn to his fire, he to your defiance, and by 1929, you're married an odd pair. His bulk to your spark an elephant, and dove your parents grumble. It's no fairy tale. Diego's unfaithful, even with your sister carving wounds deeper than any crash. You take lovers, two men and women reclaiming your power. You divorce in 1939, remarry in 1940, not for romance, but for a bond that's messy, creative, fierce. Diego's your wound, your muse, your ally, pushing you to paint truths that shake the world, your art, a fire fed by love's chaos. You're Frida in the early 1930s, trailing Diego to the US San Francisco, Detroit, New York, where his mural commissions paint factory walls with revolution. America's a shock, skyscrapers gleam, but the Great Depression's grit mirrors your own scars. You're a Mexican nationalist, a communist, proud of your indigenous roots, and this land's glitz and greed churn your stomach. You mock its obsession with shiny facades, in letters home craving Coyoacan's raw pulse. While Diego's murals shout, you paint quieter rebellions, small searing canvases on tin, your self-portrait's a lifeline in a foreign world. Your body's still a battleground, surgeries piling up, a failed pregnancy in Detroit ripping fresh wounds. You turn inward, painting your blood, your loss, your fractured spine. Henry Ford, hospital, spills it all, you on a bed, crying tethered to a fetus, a snail, a cracked pelvis raw as an open vein. Your style sharpened, surreal, symbolic, rooted in Mexican folk art, yet universal in its pain. You wear Tijuana dresses, a political flag of identity, and host Leon Trotsky and exile your politics as bold as your brush. America doesn't tame you, it fuels you, your art. A defiant scream of who you are, a woman carving her truth in a land that can't pin you down. You're Frida Kahlo back in Coyoacan, Mexico in the late 1930s, the US. Its cold gleam fading behind you. The Casa Azul, your blue-walled haven, wraps you in its cobalt embrace. Its garden humming with Aztec statues, monkeys and parrots, a living pulse of your soul. You're no longer just Diego's wife. You're a force, your art, a raw hymn to Mexico's heart. You weave Tijuana dresses and flowers into your hair, not as fashion, but as a flag honouring indigenous roots, while spitting at colonial ghosts. Your home's a shrine of pre-Columbian artefacts, ex-votos, and revolutionary books, the air thick with copal incense and mariachi's wail. Your paintings explode with colour and contradiction. The two Fridas splits you open, one in European lace heart, bleeding the other in Tijuana, strength, whole, your love loss and heritage laid bare. In 1939, Paris calls and Picasso, Breton and Kandinsky bow to your work, but you scoff at their surrealist label. I paint my reality, you snap your canvases, pulsing with skeletons, hummingbirds, thorns and blood. Mexico's gritty truth, not a dream. You dive into leftist politics, sheltering Trotsky, marching for justice, your voice as fierce as your brush. The Casa Azul's your stage, and you're painting a Mexico that's raw, proud and unbowed. Your art a mirror for a nation's soul and your own unbreakable fire. You're Frida in the 1940s, your body a traitor but your spirit a rebel. Your spine's crumbling, your right leg a nest of infection, and over 30 surgeries have carved you like a canvas. You're often bedridden, locked in body casts or stretched by traction devices that make your bones scream. Yet you paint each